So then I think we went from there and we tried to get into another place, and I was too drunk the guy at the door quite rightly labelled me as being too drunk to get in, and I think you were defending me, and at that point I tripped over.
One of the best stacks ever. I'm like, one of the biggest mistakes in my life was that no one was filming you at that time. Because not only did you fall, but we'd given you all the alcohol to put in your backpack, and Tommy fell with such force that the backpack fell over his head and went smack.
Yeah.
And then all the booze in your backpack broke.
Yeah.
And you were just dripping alcohol.
Yeah, vodka's just dripping through the fabric in the bag, just like.
and there was, like, I laugh about it now, there was a moment where I was like, fuck, did Tommy just die?
Oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to How to Do Everything, a podcast in which I, Tommy Dasilo, a very, very, very stupid young man, am attempting to learn everything about the human experience by chatting with different guest experts about what they know, what they've learned how to do, what they've always known how to do, and what they know nothing about. Today on the show, the great DJ Levins is going to teach us how to stress less, how to find the time to hyperfixate, and how to ruin a music festival. First of all, though, the comedy festival in Melbourne is underway. I am getting this recorded under the wire because I am flat out doing my show. Main character, thank you if you've been along so far. There's 5 shows left. It ends Sunday, April the 6th. I would love to see you folks there. I'm super proud of the show. Been getting some great feedback afterwards. Having so much fun doing it. So come check it out. Please make all of the mental anguish worthwhile. Tickets are at my website, tommydasilo.com. I then have Sydney and Brisbane happening in May. But until then, Andrew Levins is on the show today. My dear friend Andrew Levins, so good to have him on the show. He chats about parenting, he chats about stress, he chats about running a restaurant. He's done so many things. You might know him from DJing a music festival you've been at. You might know him from his toy collecting videos on TikTok and Instagram. He's done travel videos on there. He's written children's books. He's written cookbooks. He's done so many things. An hour isn't enough to get into all of the different things that he knows how to do. But I made a good attempt, and I really had fun recording this episode. So please enjoy How to Do Everything with Andrew Levins. I feel like you and there's like a couple of people that are in this kind of pocket where I would say we're quite close, in spite of the fact that in a given year, we might spend maybe a cumulative total of like 2 hours in the same room.
Yeah.
We talk a lot and we have like a lot of shared niche interests.
Totally.
So we do feel very close, but like you and Angus, it's like I would describe you guys as being some of my best friends, but like time that I actually spend around you in your company is quite minimal because we live in different cities.
And so as a DJ, I play a lot of music festivals, and I quite like an annual tradition that we had going for a bit where whenever I did one in Melbourne or Victoria, you'd come with me on the drive, come to the festival with me. And the true tragic thing about all these festivals not making the money that they need to survive is that you and I are hanging out less and less.
I know, yeah, less time being buckled in regional centres. Yeah, I really was like your I literally was your turtle one year. Like I've driven you to I've driven you to at least 2 music festivals that were out of town.
Well, yeah, you did drive me to Meredith.
I drove you to Meredith,
awesome.
And I drove you to Spilt Milk in Ballarat once.
Right, okay, cool. And they returned the favour last year.
A night where we ended up going out afterwards and we had just like taken everything. So you at those festivals, you're typically, well, at Spilt Milk in particular, you would DJ on the one stage for like the entire day.
But you're going to say on the ones and twos. I'm like, man, this guy gets it.
On the tools. You would DJ for the entire day, and so you would, not be wrapped up until the festival was
like literally
up.
11 a.m. till 11 p.m. set.
Yeah, and that is kind of the bummer thing about accompanying you to these festivals is like you have to be there when gates open.
Yeah.
So then I go there with my friend. You're immediately just like on the
See you
clock.
later,
You're
guys.
like working, and then I'm there and like nothing, like no bands are playing. None of the food stuff is open yet. Not a single punter is in there. Staff are looking at me like just walking around going, did this guy sneak in? Like what? Is he meant to be here? So it was after a Spilt Milk one year and we did like a lap around the backstage area as we were leaving and just grabbed drinks that had been left in other bands' riders. And we were walking down the street in beautiful downtown Ballarat trying to get a drink somewhere.
I remember we went to a bar that all their beers were like My Chemical Romance themed. And we bought My Chemical Romance like dark beers, and then like we're at a great stage in the night where I think each of us dropped our beer.
Yeah, we went to one place that was all just like weird. That's the thing is like in a regional spot, the pub will either be the most just like classic, like they've only got Carlton Draft on tap, or it'll be some twit who's moved up from the big city who's like, I'm going to start a craft beer. It's like no pilsners, no drafts, just like these like 9% like red ales. So then I think we went from there and we tried to get into another place, and I was too drunk the guy at the door quite rightly labelled me as being too drunk to get in, and I think you were defending me, and at that point I tripped over.
One of the best stacks ever. I'm like, one of the biggest mistakes in my life was that no one was filming you at that time. Because not only did you fall, but we'd given you all the alcohol to put in your backpack, and Tommy fell with such force that the backpack fell over his head and went smack. And then all the booze in your backpack broke. And you were just dripping alcohol.
Vodka's just dripping through the fabric in the bag, just like.
and there was like, I laugh about it now. There was a moment where I was like, fuck, did Tommy just die?
Oh, he's dead. I think I don't know if you've had, I mean, you're like a year or so older than me. I'm definitely at this point, I don't know if you are. You have a little fall and you have that moment, that split second moment where you're like, this might be it. This might be the end.
I haven't reached that stage yet.
The one
My
of like
grandma has. She's like
legs,
she's turning 90 this year. So.
Legs coming out from under you and just going down the stairs, and you're like, if I land slightly wrong, this might be the last one. If I had have gone out in Ballarat,
that's how Jay Leno did it this year.
Yeah. Something's going on there.
I love that story.
Yeah.
There's a few of the great stories from this year. That's one of them. And I'm obsessed with the Muppet History guy.
History.
A guy who ran a Muppets fan account who started like sending unwanted Simpsons nudes to like female like Instagram creators.
I think that's maybe the most offensive bit is that it's so off-brand. Like it's not even if he was.
But then you see photos of the dude and he's like posting like photos of him shirtless wearing a scarf, being like, "I'm Gonzo."
Right. I mean, if he was sending like some like doctored Muppets porn that he'd found, you could be like, okay, you know what? Porn. Even in his like lesser moments, this guy loves the Muppets. Breathes the Muppets. He loves it. He bleeds it. Yeah. I think there'd have to be an element where you'd be like, he's consistent. But when it's like Simpsons, it's like, I mean, this sullies the account. Stay in your lane, brother.
I just love that it made the actual news as well. Like, real websites wrote about this ridiculous situation. Yeah,
and then like to be kind of outed as a creep, and then he's like putting up all these, like taking to the Notes app and putting the statement up on the page, but sort of not really saying what's happened.
Yeah.
So all these people that just want to know stuff about Rizzo the Rat are just going, what's going on? What are you talking about?
Why is he posting the 11th apology for today? I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories about the CEO, the healthcare CEO assassin this week, but mine is that the Muppet History guy set that up to take the heat off him.
It does really read like that, yeah. Because then hasn't he said that just the account's done now?
He's deleted it. It's right,
just over. Because I saw that, and then all the replies on Twitter are all these like big Muppet fanatics being like, "Man, I'll run it for you."
Yeah.
Why does the account have to be nuked?
Yeah, it's not like like David the Muppet fan. It's Muppet History.
Muppet History. He's completely anonymous. There was he could have just posted a thing being like, "Hey, I'm stepping back. I've handed over the keys to someone else."
I just love imagining being like, "Oh wow." Like Muppet History sent me a DM.
Yeah.
I wonder what interesting historical Muppet fact he's sent me.
He's doing bespoke facts.
And then it's Mo going down on Mars.
Yeah. Even if if it was like him sending a nude of himself and like on his chest he had written like an interesting fact about Miss Piggy. Even still, you could be like
in 1973.
Yeah, Jim Henson. You'd be like still crook, but again, at least he's
on brand.
Again, this guy loves the Muppets.
Yep.
He can't get enough of the Muppets. Everything it bleeds into every part of his life. But yeah, it has been the most insane year for news stories. You're totally right. But something that I wanted to touch on is that like you could almost be a Muppets history guy. I mean, you hate the Muppets, but that's like the least important part of it, as we found out. No, you are someone who one of your skill sets, one of your expertise areas is like you're very good at kind of stumbling onto a cultural thing and then just really finding out everything there is to know about it.
My brain won't rest until I know all of that Muppet history.
Yeah. And so for you, when you get into that zone, what is your process for finding out everything about? Because I get sort of the same thing where I'm like, I get into something and I'm like, oh, this is such an interesting like whatever comic series or artist that I never knew anything about. And I'll start trying to do a bit of digging, and then I feel like, especially if you just rely on the internet, you find like pretty quickly you just hit a bit of a wall where you're finding out like either like wrong information or just like there are massive gaps or, suddenly the guy that you were relying on for information is sending you an image of Barney eating out Mr. Burns. It's just so hard to get informed,
Burping in that hole. For me, like I'm a dad with two kids, and so the bulk of my life is spent cleaning. And I like to listen to stuff while I clean. So, and I always spend most of my time sitting on the couch trying to find things to listen to on YouTube before I start cleaning.
Sure.
So I'll spend an hour doing that for a cleaning job that will take me at most 25 minutes.
That's so interesting because you're a guy who you seem like one of these people who has found another 6 hours in the day. Like you have two kids, you're incredibly busy, you're incredibly successful at a lot of these different things that you do. You also do have a lot of hobbies and a social life, and you really do seem like a guy who it's like, I don't get how this guy pulls it off, especially when like, most people that with kids are like, everything's had to go in the in the bin. No more video games for me. I never watch movies. I never do anything. All I'm doing is parenting.
So because of my brain being the way it is, and like I've got children that have been diagnosed on the spectrum recently, and and I did the tests that they had to do, and I was like, oh, yep, one for him, one for me, one for him, one for me. So I'm almost certainly on there with him,
right?
I will find like I need to. If I have lots of stuff to do, I've got to make that to-do list. And I've got to make that to-do list so exhaustive of every single thing that I have to do, be it like, pack and fold the washing away. And then it'll be like, finish my novel.
Yeah, sure.
And those tasks are equal on my list.
Yeah.
Eventually I will tick all those things off. But I have a weird ability to be able to do something that would take other people a long time, like writing a book, for example. I can do that overnight.
Yeah, didn't you were telling me one of your most recent ones you wrote because your son came home and he was like kind of winding you up about how you hadn't written a book for a while. So you sat up all night out of spite.
Every year his school invites me to come and talk to them about being an author for Book Week, but I haven't had a book published since 2021 because, and the realistic reason is that like of all the things that I do as income streams, that's one of the lowest.
Yeah.
It's like so much work to go in because I can write it, but then when the editing process, and there's so much back and forth process when writing even a kid's book, in fact, probably especially when you're writing a kid's book because the publisher wants it to be a hit. So
isn't it so depressing? I don't know if you feel this way about it or did when you were younger, because like I'm trying to work on a book at the moment and kind of it in my head, like having a book out, like that's when you were younger and you would, not that you just necessarily assumed that everyone who wrote a book was a millionaire, but
totally.
it means something,
exactly,
a thing that is on the shelf that someone else invested in and like it got printed up and there's a beautiful cover. It's like, to me, something like that, it's like making a movie. It's like the ultimate idea of like an end goal. And to be in this point in time now where most people would talk to you about it and go, it's barely even worth the effort, honestly. It's just like, it's so it's like, it shouldn't be that way. Like,
it's worth the effort because my kids think it's the coolest thing ever.
Right.
They love it. But I've got 3. Like, that's enough. You know what I mean?
Right. Books or kids?
I only got 2 kids.
You always need to have one more book out than children you have.
That's the rule. I got 5 books. Yeah. So I should, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you got to get a bit of leeway there.
It's true. But yeah, no, the editing process where like you have to kill your darlings essentially, like get rid of characters that you really like, or even just jokes that you really like.
Yep.
The editor's like, this one's not working, or like, this just pads the chapter out too much. Try and reduce this, blah, blah. I find that process like squeezing water from a stone. Like, it's so tough. So that, despite being able to write it in such a short amount of time, the editing process will take me months. Because I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this.
But I really love that idea of like, getting your information about something you're interested in by filling up that blank space in the day.
Yeah.
Because someone said to me once like, oh, it's interesting that you keep up with music because it's like you are devoting time to something that like most people as they get older, they just don't bother anymore. They don't have the time. And I'm like, is that true, or is that more just like people age out of being bothered to keep up with stuff? Because for me, I think like in 2024, staying up to date with music, it's not like, 20 years ago where to keep up with music, you would have to like, go to a record store, look through the racks, maybe listen to something in the store. It's such a passive thing now. It's like you follow artists that you like, they post that they've got a new thing, you add that to your library, or someone you like bigs someone else up. It kind of just, I feel like it just kind of, I don't really spend any time in the day being like, I've got to find new music. Yeah, it just kind of washes over.
But here's the thing though, we did when we were kids. Like when we were teenagers, or at least when I was a teenager, I used to buy so many music magazines.
Oh yeah.
And all the British rags were always hyping up like, a band that now probably put out 2 songs and then did nothing else.
This is a running joke I have with my friend, is that Q magazine, I used to read Q magazine.
Q was like, that was the respectable one.
They had the biggest Jones for U2. Every time U2 put out a new album, they'd be like, the Kings are back. They've done it again. And we just always found it so funny. They would just always be finding reasons in there to talk. They would be like between album cycles, and someone in at Q would just obsessively be finding reasons to like put a whole thing in there about Bono for basically no reason.
So reading the magazines that were aimed at younger audiences in like the 90s and 2000s, there would just be like every month I'd pick up a new one or borrow a friend's music magazine, and it would just be like hyping you up for these like bands. You would have no idea what their music would sound like except for the descriptions and then the photos, and you're like, oh man, I've got to go and find that that $4.95 CD single. Whereas I feel like now you would see like, I guess, a tweet of someone being like, this album's amazing. And once you see like, 13 different tweets essentially saying the same thing, well, I guess I'll give this one a shot.
Yeah.
Or like maybe in like your For You page, you'll get like a video of the artist performing a Tiny Desk or something like that.
Yeah. And I kind of already felt like for a while it's been a pretty passive endeavor, but even more so now, where a lot of the times that people find out about a big song is through TikToks, right? So if you're on there a lot, you're just kind of hearing the same thing in the background of all these different videos 100 times, and you end up going, oh, I love this.
But we used to spend $30 on a CD, and there would be like a part of your brain that would be like, well, I'm gonna like this no matter what, because $30 is like, that's like 3 hours of work at my job that I hate, and I just spent it on like 12 songs that I only know one of.
Can you remember when you were a kid and when you like worked your like first job where you got like a
Chooka's Chicken,
Chooka's Chicken.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you spent the money on?
Almost certainly an imported CD from Borders. So I worked.
Mad.
The Borders. It literally opened up in Hornsby near where I lived. When
God, wasn't that a racket when you'd see like something you'd been looking for and you'd see the little imported sticker and you'd go, oh my God, someone who works here bothered to get it in.
And all I have to do is pay an extra $12.95
it'd be so expensive. Yeah. Mine was, I remember working at BP and getting my first paycheck and being so excited to go and buy the film Rat Race on DVD. that had like just come out. I have the most vivid memory of being like, this is adulthood. Like I can just go and get it. I've got my own income now.
But Borders, when that opened in Sydney, it was such a massive moment because it was internet wasn't fully popping off yet. This is like the late 90s. Like I had dial-up internet at home, but like I really didn't know the websites to search for. I wasn't on any message boards or anything like that. But Borders was, you had a CD section with tons of imported rap CDs and imported indie rock CDs. And so I would just like look for cover art, look on the back, see if I recognized producers that I liked.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how I like really, really like invested my like time into like figuring out like everything about the music that I liked. Then they also had a phenomenal graphic novel section, and I was just getting into like Dan Clowes, R. Crumb, all the fanographic stuff. Even as a young teenager, that was all I read. I hated the idea of reading a superhero comic.
Same.
And it was always had to be like these like, you know, angry, artistic, you know, like very, very
these like sexless nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That was like I
truly
loved it.
like truly kind of incel stuff where it was
totally.
These like R. Crumb being like, women are all stuck up. Like, why don't they like me?
and then an amazing DVD section too.
So
that place was like that was the best place to go after a shift at my job, and just like, you know that I was going to spend my entire paycheck, but also I was going to learn heaps of stuff just from being in that area for a while. Yeah.
And so at what age did you start DJing? Like quite soon after school?
So during high school, my best mate Elston and I, we used to like collect like for council cleanups, which is where everyone puts their rubbish on the side of the street. There'd be we'd always find people's old turntables, like belt drive turntables, and we amassed like a pretty big collection. Each of us had like 2 to 3 at home, and when we all turned 18, we would have house parties, and Elston and I would DJ. We had an amazing record store near our house called Discovery Records in Hornsby, and we would just spend what money we didn't spend at Borders. I spent at Discovery, and it's had like an amazing like vinyl collection of like things that I paid $1-2 for.
Just quickly, isn't it funny now that like Borders is basically gone?
Yeah,
and like people of our age kind of romanticizing like, oh, it was just the place to go to find all this like this great off the grid stuff. And like at the time, people that were our age now, they hated Borders because they were like, this is this big corporate institution that's shutting down the mum and pop stores. So I have the same thing. There was like a big iconic Borders near where I grew up, and I really romanticize it too. And it's like, it is so weird to.
It was in Australia for like less than 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was massive though because they just like literally just brought like stock from America to Australia.
Yeah, so, it was easy for them to import.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but sorry, so you go to the record store.
But I remember we set up a bunch of the turntables and used like a band mixer to mix between them. And so we would DJ house parties. And like we were awful. And to be honest, all of the best music we played, we would play off a Discman.
Yep.
Because all the songs that we were paying $1 for to own on vinyl, no one wanted to hear. But
then, of course.
You know, Beyonce would put out Crazy in Love, and we have that on CD single, so we'll play that.
Yeah.
And I had a radio show at a place called Triple H, which stood for Triple Hornsby. When I was in high school, and from there I went to FBI Radio, which still exists in Sydney, and people used to call me during my show and say, hey, I like the music that you played, do you want to DJ in between bands tonight? And so I pretty much from like 18 and up, I learned how to DJ while being paid to do it, which is an extremely cool position to be in when you're like that age. I dropped out of uni so fast because not only was I getting free tickets to live shows every single night of the week, which is all I wanted, I was also getting free CDs, and I was getting paid to DJ and I was getting free drinks. I was like, cool, that's everything I need in life.
Because I've always been interested in this because like now, like your role as a DJ is like you do, like at the moment you're doing a lot of these like Christmas parties for some big companies and stuff like that. And that idea of like, as you get older and you have a family and it becoming this like true, like, you know, a real, like a job, but it is it is very similar to comedy in that like, I think there's an impulse when you are discovering it when you're younger where you're like, you're just trying to avoid going to an office or like, and you're also interested in a lot of like the perks and especially with DJing, it's like, hey, I get to like party and like just listen to music and be drunk and like, did you have much of an idea like when you were younger and starting it, like that this would be something that you would do for your whole life? Or did you think like at a certain point, like, hey, maybe the jig's going to be up here and I'm going to have to go back to uni?
Yeah, look, I have a lot of friends that are DJs that have only ever been DJs and nothing else. And some of them still are and like, are quite successful. They play the same music they thought was cool back then. They're still pushing things that like songs that are important to them first and foremost. Whereas I'm more of as I get older, I'm like, I'll just keep the crowd happy. Like I don't really care if I'm playing songs I don't like. Even as a like treating DJing like a job, it's still a pretty fun job. And I think for some DJs, that is when you have like absolutely given up and sold out. But whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what's interesting about you is that you do, even just in the time I've known you, you've done so many different things. Like you're kind of always taking on these new things from like...
Yeah, I've never only just been a DJ. Like even when I was a teenager, I was doing a radio show. I was writing for Music Press. I was working at Chuka's Chicken. And then as I started getting into the food world, I was DJing and cooking and writing about food, writing about music, putting on my own events, putting on food events, music events, both. And then making videos about both those things as well. So it all just like, it makes sense to me. They all kind of, even though they might seem like very, very different jobs that I do, they do work. And most importantly, that they're all jobs that I can do either when the kids are at school or when my wife is at home to look after them so I can go out on at night on the weekend and do my work there,
Yeah, I mean, because there is something about all these different things that you do where I don't, it's interesting because it's never seemed like you're someone who just has gone, oh, I'm going to make this hard pivot and open a restaurant. Like you kind of, obviously like, being out and DJing and a lot of that time is going to be at like restaurants or at the very least like places that serve food. So obviously you're kind of like around that world.
Well, so my best mate at the time, Jimmy Singh, he opened up, he and I were DJing together with Elston and another guy, Ryan. Jimmy and his partner Hannah opened up a nightclub called Good God. And there was an empty restaurant space in there. My wife Bianca and I had been, she was working at a nightclub in King's Cross and having to stay up till like 4, 5, 6 a.m. every Saturday and was like, I needed a change in life. We were both really into food. The two of us like unlocked that in each other and we used to travel just to eat basically. And she got really into like making like cool and weird sandwiches and posting them online on like Tumblr and got like, a little bit of like, notoriety for that and decided that she wanted to open a cafe. And I looked at the hours that would she'd need to keep. And I was like, at this point, like we're not going to survive that. So instead I pitched to her that, hey, why don't we take over that restaurant space in our friend's nightclub?
And how long had you guys been together at that point?
3 years.
Yeah. Wow.
We had no restaurant experience. She waited tables, when she was much younger, and I worked at Chuka's Chicken. I knew how to deep fryer worked and how to swear at customers, but that was about it. And
the restaurant needs to be near borders. That's my only requirement.
We basically like pitched it to Jimmy and Hannah like, hey, you guys don't have any nightclub experience, so it makes sense that you would get a restaurant in from people that don't have any restaurant experience. And they were like, absolutely, which just sounds like insanity. But we put together a pretty great like mission statement, plan, menu, and really filled a gap that at the time was absolutely there. And nowadays it's like, really, that was the food that was missing from Sydney? It was like American style diner food.
Because I reckon you'd been running it for not ages, but certainly you were in the swing of it at the time I met you. Yeah. This is what I was going to get to before. I think you might be my first, if not one of my only internet friends.
Sure.
We met purely through
Twitter, I think.
Through Twitter. Yeah, I DM'd you when you were in Melbourne because I'd followed you and you were coming down for the comedy festival.
Yep.
And I invited you to my show and you couldn't make it, but then I was up in Sydney the next month and we went to Free Comic Book Day together.
Nice.
With Angus Truscott. But that was, I mean, getting to know you and having a friend who ran a restaurant who that was also in a club where you would play regularly.
Yeah. I mean, you think the 11 till 11 hours at a festival are long. I would get to the Dip, my restaurant, at like 9 a.m. every day, and then I would work we would close the kitchen at about 10, 11, and then I would DJ out the back of the club till like 3, 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And that was like a regular Friday, Saturday night setup for me.
Yeah.
And we were open other nights as well, but that was, every weekend was just like very little sleep.
But it did rule like any time I was up in Sydney to just have like a spot to go. Like
you
generally would always be there either like playing and then the next level of it, just like walk in, you would know I was there. You would just like throw down some free food on the table. It really was just like the dream lifestyle.
Just had a great flashback to a mutual acquaintance of ours who came in to eat at the Dip one time. Yep. And I recognized he was also an internet person that we knew liked comedy. And I recognized him and I gave him all this free food and he reviewed us on whatever like food review website was the big thing at the time.
Foursquare?
Something like that. And he was like, the food is good but very expensive. And I was like, I gave you a free meal.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
That is like online review culture, like to a T.
Yeah.
That is just, that's so beautiful. But yeah, because I do feel like you are someone who like most people know you. So I do, and we have a lot of mutual friends now. So I do feel like our paths probably would have crossed at some stage.
Yeah, no, for
sooner
sure.
Sooner or later,
yeah.
were it not for reaching out on Twitter.
Yeah.
But were you
I just think one of the weird catalysts, like the music comedy crossover stuff was Henry Stone used to make videos as JDOS, and one of his JDOS videos where he played like a rave rat, like a festival doof head, was like his guide to Splendor, and like randomly in the middle of the video, and he reached out and asked me if this was okay. He goes make sure you see my mate Levins DJing, and like I still have people that comment on my videos, my mate Levins, or like a line from JDOS.
JDOS brought me here.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's incredible reach. But do you have many like just like internet people from that era? Like, I mean, I was the one that reached out to you.
So
but
many internet friends. Yeah, like I mean, and even like Angus, who like we record a podcast together every week now called Hey Fam, and like we text each other 4,000 times a day.
Yeah,
but the first time I met him in real life, I thought he was a wanker. And it wasn't until I got to know his online persona that I was like, oh, actually, I like this guy a lot.
That's so funny, because I would say my experience with people is more often than not the complete opposite. You're like, you only know someone from online and you're like, God, this person seems like an absolute fucking punish. And then you end up meeting them or doing a gig with them or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're actually, okay, I've been won over. I've been converted. To be like the real life guy is so much worse than the online. But he would take that as a compliment. He really cares about his online, his curated online presence. But so the getting the hyperfixating on things. Your most recent one was, or one of your most recent ones was like Donald Duck.
Yeah, that's why I'm worried for you today.
You've gone in deeper on the Ducks. In honor of you. Doing this today, I sat up late last night playing Quackshot on the Sega Mega Drive.
Amazing. Weird game.
If people don't know, there's a lot of great old Donald Duck video games from like the early 90s
and even more than that, there's a lot of great old Donald Duck comics from the 30s. And 40s and 50s and
I think he might be maybe the best cartoon.
Him or Scrooge. I love Uncle Scrooge as well. And it really is cool when you can get equally obsessed with something as your kids.
Yep.
And so I would buy these. I've bought a few hundred Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge comics in the last year. I was doing pretty good at the start of the year. I'm doing significantly less good now, and I keep seeing there's like a shrine of like these hardcover Duck comics, and I was like, if only I didn't buy maybe 50 of those, I'd probably be in a better spot now.
What do you mean, like?
In terms of like, I spent a lot of money on comics that I probably shouldn't have, given how much more difficult this year was compared to last year.
I get you. Right.
But like Archie, my son, just devoured those comics, and his knowledge of like, he loves the back matter where they go through the context of these, what was it like to work at Disney in the 30s?
Oh, sure.
What was he writing about? What is this in reference to? And then the Don Rosa stuff, which is like almost like sequels to the Karl Barks stuff from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but written in the 90s, and has like a illustration style inspired by Akram.
Yeah.
And like Archie just like eats that up too and talks about it with me. And then
that's awesome.
Watching the DuckTales reboot on Disney Channel.
Yep.
With both the kids, and they got obsessed with that. I don't know. It's a good time to be a Duck fan. But to get back to like how I get into things to begin with, YouTube is great because no matter how obsessed you think you are with something, there is someone a million times more obsessed than you could ever possibly be, and they've recorded their most unhinged, uncut 3-hour-long thoughts.
But is that good or bad? Because to everyone else in your life, you're that guy. You're the YouTube guy.
I don't care about those people. I want to know what they know.
Yeah.
And I love being able to. I love that. Like, I think it's great that there's all these resources, of wikis and things like that, of people that have like written guides to bands and movies and directors and characters. But for me, like the pure uncut good stuff is just finding someone with like 12 followers on YouTube and listening to them rant into a badly recorded video.
There is something though about like, it's cool that your son is really into the back stuff in the
context,
the context stuff that they put in those like big collections of comics. Because when we were kids and we wanted to find out everything about something, that was all there was. Like I remember having the first Calvin and Hobbes thing I had was my parents bought me I think it was like the 10th anniversary book that he did. Mm-hmm. And it's all of his like favorite strips from over the history of it. And he's written little kind of notes about each one and where the ideas came from.
Sure.
And at that time, that was it.
That was it.
There's no doco about him. There's no like Wikipedia page. Like stumbling across like a book like that or at like a garage sale or something, or like what those old like the big like Mad magazine collections where they would have similar kind of stuff. I feel like for me, like
my entry to so much cartoon strips, comic book strips, was like using a public toilet, and they have a big stack of like Far Side magazines. You're like, oh, sick.
Yeah, 100%. So unhygienic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can imagine you. Like, my dad wasn't. He's not like a cultural. He's not like a super. My parents don't really listen to music, and they're not like. I certainly never had like. When they knew that I was interested in drawing and cartoons and stuff, like they would get me that stuff for birthdays, but it wasn't like with you where it's like a shared interest that he's passing down. But then maybe the coolest thing my dad has ever done, and this could be you one day, we went to New York when I was like 12, and that episode of The Simpsons where they go to New York had just been on like not that long before that.
He got you a crab drink.
Better. You know how Bart goes to the Mad Magazine offices?
Oh, no way.
We're in the hotel room and Dad just looks up Mad Magazine in the phone book and he's like, why don't we walk around there? And so we just turn up and we're like, hey, can we have like the guy to, is there something we can like do? And the lady at reception is like, no one's ever come in and asked that before. She's like, I guess I could find someone to like show you around.
That's awesome.
And so
Alfred,
there's like a giant plexiglass Alfred like at the front desk. It is like it's so at the time it was so easy to find.
Yeah,
we just literally like walked up there from the street, and so she got like one of the just whoever was around to show us around. They were doing some form of like I don't know, anniversary issue.
Sure.
Where the cover was like lots of little pictures of like their favorite covers over the years, and they'd just taken like the Polaroids for like putting that together.
Sure.
So they gave me all of them.
No way.
They just gave me a whole bunch of shit that was like lying around the office that was like just someone's sketch of something. And then on the way out, they opened a door into a room that was like probably this big that was just like piled up with back issues. And she's like, I just take as many as you want. I was like, that's the coolest thing my dad probably will ever do.
That rules.
He wasn't even that much of a fan of it. He'd just seen it. It's like he thought that Simpsons episode was like a Lonely Planet guide or something. He's like, this is apparently what you do.
Here's 10 things you've got to do in New York.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could see, that is a cool, because I remember messaging you and you are someone who you're like, you're one of the only people I know with kids who is like, generally very positive about it.
Sure.
Like at least outwardly. Not to say that you don't find it tough or a pain in the ass at times or whatever. But I feel like, and this is I think this is true of most people. The majority of people that you're around with kids, it's like all you hear about is the negative.
Right.
And then people are like, so why haven't you done it yet? It's like, because people like you paint the worst possible picture of it. You've literally never told me a good thing about it. All you do is like vent and rant. And it's like, it is funny that with kids, people give people the license to sort of rant and complain about their kids because people understand that like, hey, that's part of it. I get it. but also all of life is like that. All of life is negatives and positives. And you imagine the equivalent person where all they ever talked about was just like all the negative stuff that was going on in every other facet of their life. You'd be like, God, this person's a punish. I can't hang out with them anymore.
Well, I wonder if like part of my like insistence that like my kids do stuff together and I get into things on the same level that they do is that like I feel like maybe that's a DJ thing because like no matter how old I'm playing to, and I often will have to play to rooms full of teenagers, I have to figure out what they like.
Yeah.
And after a while of playing music they like, you start to like it too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wonder if like being in that situation where I'm like, you know what, this is actually pretty cool or pretty good or maybe I do like this makes me more like, you know, more likely to
but you
get
also
on
are,
their level.
You're lucky in that you're wired in the way where a lot of the stuff that you like is the stuff that is for like all ages that kids do like, that you got into when you were a kid.
Berserk.
Yeah. So I was messaging you.
Leisure Suite Larry.
I was messaging you like 2 years ago. I was in Vietnam and Pikmin 4 had just come out on the Switch.
A great time.
A great game. Great game that we'd both been really looking forward to. And I think it was like, maybe the day after it had come out or something. And I was saying to you like, have you had much time to play it? And you were like, I've played a little bit of it. It's going to be one that I go through with the kids and they've been looking forward to it. And you were like, man, if you ever have kids, like the day that a video game comes out that they're into and you're into, it's just like the best day. Like everyone's so happy and just having such a great time.
And now that I get like, you know, because of the video work I do, Nintendo, they don't just send me a code. They'll send me like a gift bag with like Pikmin cupcakes. And Pikmin like all this. And like, so the kids get home from school and I'm like, guys, look what got delivered. It's Pikmin Day, motherfuckers.
I love seeing those videos because it's just funny to imagine the person at the Nintendo office that has to, every new game that comes out, they have to be like,
what are we going to do?
Jesus Christ, what are we going to put in the show bag? Played through a little bit of the game. It's like, there's really nothing in here that lends itself to a little snack or a little keychain or anything like that. But, I loved you saying that because again, that was just like such a nice, like positive thing about the experience of having kids and especially like, having these hobbies. And again, you don't really hear that all that often. And it really, like as someone who has a lot of like, fears and hesitations about having kids and everything in my own life, it really just buoyed me up kind of hearing that. I was like, oh man, it was such a nice positive thing to hear. And then when I'd been messaging you, we were in a hotel in Hanoi and we were going on a cruise that day. So we went downstairs and we got picked up by this shuttle bus that went around and picked up people from other hotels. There was only one other stop that the van did. It picked up a young family from a hotel down the road, mum and dad and 2 kids. And I reckon the kids would have been like roughly your kids' age.
Sure.
And they were sitting there and the boy at one point, he goes, Daddy, what do we do when we get on the boat? And the dad goes, we sit in silence.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh my God. I could not have, it really was like bizarro version of your family. I could not have gotten more of the two sides of the coin closer together.
I see, like, nothing makes me feel like more smug than like, being on a plane and seeing like parents just do that to their kids. How do you expect your kids to act if you don't put the time in to one, like, you also don't want them just like, okay, disappear into your world for a while now, shut up. But you also want to, I like engaging with them. Otherwise, I like, if he's going to play an app for an hour, I want him to then stop and then tell me all the cool things that happened while he was doing that.
Yeah. What did you learn?
Exactly. And like, I feel like it can't be that hard to find something that you and your kids can bond over.
100%. Yeah. I mean, my dad's great, but he was
took
very...
you to Mad Magazine office. He gets like a pass.
He did. But before that, I remember being very like, he's really into old cars. I never was, not for lack of him not trying. And the stuff that I was into, I'd be like, hey, do you want to play this video game with me? And he'd be like, no, not really. Like, not to knock it. Like, I do get it, but it was like, that's always been this, like, I felt like big chasm growing up where I was like, man, I would love a dad that liked going to the movies.
Sure, yeah.
Although that being said, he wasn't like consistently, into cultural stuff, but then he really made it count when he did because this is another great piece of me and my dad lore.
That's why we keep coming back here, baby. Get him on.
When Austin, I probably should. When Austin Powers in
how
Gold
to do
member,
everything. Ask him how to fuck. How did you make me, Dad?
When Austin Powers in Gold member came out, my dad wagged work and let me wag school to go and see it. First session day it came out at like 10 a.m. at the Jam Factory in Melbourne. King move.
Yeah.
Absolute king move.
Had he seen the first two?
Yeah.
So he was on board.
He knew what an important cultural
He knew what a
moment that
shagadelic day it was.
Yeah. Me and him sitting there in a basically empty cinema, watching Tom Cruise and Britney Spears turn up in the opening credits, being like, I love you, Dad.
That's like the best part of the movie too.
Real
It's all
cradle
downhill
shit.
from there.
Yeah, totally.
My son almost choked on a fishbone a couple of weeks ago, and we had the inevitable annual night in emergency because of that. Mm-hmm. It just happens when you're a parent.
Yep.
You're gonna spend at least one night in emergency once a year.
Right.
And I was like running out the door, like, we were worried that he'd like torn up the back of his throat. Despite him like going into full survival mode, putting his whole hand down his mouth and
God.
pulling this fishbone out. I was like, I couldn't believe. I was like, wow.
Now, truly, that is some Mad Magazine shit.
I was like,
anytime
he's
someone
good.
vomits, there's always like a fishbone in there.
Yeah, no, legit, yeah. But we were like, okay, well, we should still take him. But like, when you're worried about your kid, it's like, yep, this is the right thing to do. And then the moment you get to emergency and you're like, oh, fuck, what have I done? Because emergency at a public hospital in Sydney, it's like 6 to 7 hours.
Oh, sure.
That's how long you got to wait.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a really life-threatening thing, they just make you sit. The triage nurse sees you after an hour or two, and you sit and wait and wait and wait. Then they send you to a bed and you wait and wait and wait for a doctor. And I'm like, as we're going to the car, I'm like, wait, and I run inside and I grab his iPad and I grab the Switch and I grab a book and I grab some snacks and his water bottle and we go to, and like, yes, it took one extra minute to get to emergency, but I sat down and, it's miserable, it's loud, it's so bad. I'm like, okay, Archie, what do you want first? Do you want to read some manga on your iPad? Do you want to play a video game? And so he was just like, cycling through different activities.
It has to be one of those two.
Yeah.
Dad, I actually don't really like manga and video games.
Yes, you do.
Oh, it's so loud in here. I can't really hear what you're saying.
But there's another dad and his kid's like, a lot younger, like maybe 4 or 5. And the kid's bored out of his mind and he's just like wandering around the waiting room, the hospital, like going out the back with the nurses. And then the dad's just on his phone. And then every now and then, like, Darren! And like screaming, get back here. And then like, shake his kid around.
He's on Ladbrokes. He's
and
just having a punt.
just sit back down. And like,
oh my God.
For like 6 hours, this poor kid was just sit down and then,
Yeah. I do feel like that is the thing, right? It's like if you're out in public a lot with your children, you inevitably are going to see like the worst example of the guy where it's like, hey, that guy seems to be managing. So if that's the bar, it's actually pretty easy to be a half-decent dad. You know what I mean? Like you must regularly just be seeing people just really dropping the ball.
Yeah, but it's all about that to-do list. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like if I'm going away and I know that there's going to be like a 6-hour train trip or a flight or whatever, you pack snacks, you pack entertainment, you put the effort into making sure that they are not just like taken care of for a bit, but like properly entertained and immersed in something. Yep. And then you'll have a much better time because of it.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff we've been talking about kind of circles around something that is your something that you've known how to do for most of your life, which is not stress.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in particularly like learning that at a young age. Like, is that just because I guess I don't know. I guess I was an anxious kid, but I mean, it's funny because as a kid, you have very few stresses.
Yeah, but I think I was definitely like stressed when I was a lot younger. Stressed that all the kids wanted to play something different that I wanted to play at lunch, like those kind of like things that kids have. Where I don't want to play soccer.
Yeah,
I don't want to know what I want to do, but it's not.
I want to play Pikmin 4, and it won't be out for another 30 years.
But when I was a teenager, I guess and I became just like a smart ass kid that didn't really care about school or anything like that. Ultimately, you've got a bed to go to sleep in at night, and you got friends.
Yeah.
And so what else do you need? And so I just was from a very young age just like, yeah, who cares? Like this, and I just didn't really stress about anything. I got fired from like first 3 jobs just for being a rat bag.
Yep.
And I just got another one because no one ever checks the references of a 15-year-old.
Yeah, and this is maybe of everything that's come up on this show so far, the thing I would most love to learn, because I stress so much. And like I was talking to someone about this the other day about just some current stresses, and they were like, yeah, you'll be fine. Like it's worked out for you in the past. So like you're old enough to know that it works out. And I weirdly, like I know that. I know deep down that it's true, but it still doesn't stop. It doesn't stop me from just
there's negatives.
losing my mind.
There's negatives to this too. Like I often won't meet deadlines by a long way because I'm like, what's going to happen? Yeah. Which is terrible. Like, it's a very disrespectful way to treat people that employ me.
Yeah.
I just, my brain will just be like, yeah, it's not that important. What you should do is, clean the house and get into a new thing that you didn't know existed until a week ago. Yeah,
I think I'm weirdly like I stress about the deadline and I stress about the stuff that like, kind of is will sort itself out. Like it just is like you just have to dedicate the time. Like a lot of times when I'm stressed about something, it's like all this needs is just the hours. That's when I get really stressed. When I feel like I just have physically run out of the time that I need to like make this good or do it properly. Or
I genuinely
hate feeling unprepared.
Genuinely wouldn't sleep if I didn't need to.
Yeah, right.
If you could take a pill that gave you 6 hours of sleep instead of having 6 hours of sleep, I would take it. And then stay up all night and learn about new things.
Just keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
I think I kind of feel the same way, but I've had this like hypothetical with people before, and I do think like your brain never logging off, you would go mad. Like, can you imagine that world where it's not just the rest, it's like your brain actually turning off?
Yeah, sure.
If you were just constantly absorbing data with no downtime whatsoever.
The oracle.
I reckon after a week you would go, if it was a pill where it's like all of a sudden I don't sleep anymore, I think you just also would feel so weird about that. You would be like 6 days in going like, I have not gotten into bed and I feel fine.
Just get rid of it.
This is insane.
Yeah.
I think you would permanently feel like, have you ever used a VR headset where it like gets out of sync for like a second and you turn your head and it's all like off? You would just feel completely off balance, like constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But see, my brain didn't allow myself to come up with that part of this equation. Yeah.
I'll stress about running late to things and not having things done, but then weirdly, when things do go wrong, I'm like, I'm fine. Like we coming back from Vietnam this most recent time, our flight got like cancelled at the last minute in this like really weird way where, because it's like a overseas airline, you get this like weird text that kind of doesn't make sense. And they basically were like, oh, you're getting a connecting flight. Your original one's kind of moved, so you're not going to make the connection. Call us to work out what to do. And we couldn't get through to anyone. And it was like, it just feels like we're going to get to Ho Chi Minh and just be like stuck there. What are we going to do? And Lauren was like getting a bit panicked about it. And I'm just like, what's worst case scenario? We're just on the holiday for another day.
Yeah, rules.
That's great. Like I'm in those kinds of situations, I'm immediately like, fuck this. Let's not even get on the flight. Let's just book another hotel here now for tonight and just enjoy the rest of the afternoon and not go through any of this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like
Perfect.
in those moments, once it is all going bad, I'm like, well, this is what I spend all my life stressing about, is to be prepared for when it goes bad. And now it's going bad and I can leap into action and use my skill set. So yeah, I don't know. I would like to not stress the small stuff, but I just feel like it's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah, like my wife's the same. We're very, very different people in that regard. And I think the two of us together are a great couple, great parents, because one of us is thinking about everything and the other one's thinking, or otherwise the other one
that duck do?
And the other one just knows what to do when things go wrong.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, I hadn't survived childhood cancer. I mean, it doesn't get any more, it'll all work out than that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I should really be living my life like Mr. Magoo, just not giving a care, just walking down the street. Anvils are falling around me. I'm just almost falling down a pothole. But Instead,
I mean, if you were to say, Levins, which of your friends lives his life every day like he's Mr. Magoo, I'd probably say Tommy.
It kind of is me as well. But that's the thing. I guess I give that impression, but it's like under the surface, there's just like a constant.
No, but if you were like, hey, Levins, guess which one of your friends fell down a manhole today?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you mean like literally like the cartoon. Yeah, guess which one of your friends is most like a cartoon in how buffoonish their life is.
Guess who was reading a book while walking and then suddenly stood on a plank that was elevated up to the top of a skyscraper?
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit quickly about your, so one of the, we talked about it before, but yeah, DJing, music festivals, and you've talked about this before, but I mean, it is something that we should probably get into together on the air. Driving you to Meredith Music Festival.
Yeah, a beautiful moment we shared together.
Legendary moment in Australian music history, I'm going to say.
It's next year is a 10-year, or whenever this goes up, 2025 is the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, and what do you think?
Meredith need to book me again.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'll play exactly the same set.
That's why I want to start talking about this now. We need to start the campaign early. We need to start, Meredith was like just on, so now's the time.
Yeah, totally.
Was
there any controversy this year?
Not that I saw. I didn't see anyone getting mad about any of the acts or anything. So again, they're due.
I feel like the year after I had my enormous kerfuffle, which we'll get into later, there was a DJ called DJ Harvey who at the end of his set just picked up all of the turntables and just smashed them onto the stage. I'm like, do you see how much worse it could be?
I drove you to that festival. We went down with my friend Drew and our friend Tom Ballard, and we had this just beautiful drive down, lots of fun. And
we actually listened to Justin Bieber quite a bit on that drive.
We did, because that's important context. Like, he was just kind of in his real like upswing where Sorry had just come out, and then that like
whatever that album was called had just come out, and like I was like making the pitch to you guys that Sorry was a great song. Yeah.
And I think you got us over the line on that drive.
Yeah.
And then there's the other one. I don't know if it was on that album, but the one he did that's Still Friends. Is that what it's called?
That was a few years later, yeah.
That was later. Okay. But yeah, he kind of, things were kind of shifting with how people felt about Bieber. And so you play there's one stage. You play at like what? Was it midnight or something?
Yeah, midnight till 1 or 1 to 2 or something like that.
Yeah, on the final night.
As like the bridge between the live acts and the DJs.
You know who played that set? This one just gone. Jamie XX.
Oh, no way. How much Bieber did he play? I feel like people would have cheered if he played Bieber.
So this is it. So you played Sorry.
My brief was just play a party set. Play whatever you play at like at one of your parties in Sydney. Just do that. And I was like, okay, cool. I play like, hip hop, R&B, dance hall parties. I'll just do a mix of that, and I'll throw in some like fun indie party songs towards the end of the set.
And we'd been doing this thing on the drive up where anytime someone started telling a story.
No, you would be the way you would set this up. You would be like, hey, Levins, can you tell me that thing about like what happened with your mum again? And I'd be like, oh yeah, well she was in hospital the other day, and then you just go, who cares?
Yeah.
And then we all cackle with laughter.
And it really is. It's one of those ones where it's a fun bit for a bit, but then you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And it just got to a point where none of us could say anything, any piece of information.
Well, someone would be suggesting what we eat for brunch, and we would the other person would say, "Who cares?" Like three menu items in.
Well, I mean, as it often does in my life and on this show, something came up about me talking about being sick as a kid, and I could just see all of you just like the meme of like the kid with his vein popping out the side of his head, like, oh, this is flying pretty close to the sun, but if we land a who cares on this story about childhood cancer, that's going to be pretty good. But that's pretty funny.
I'm playing to a packed amphitheater, the most people I've ever played to in my life.
Yep.
And I've since played to more, but at the time that was a lot of people. The only time I played to more is when it was New Year's Eve at Falls Festival, and Dizzy Rascal pulled out of his set, and they were just like, just put Levins in. And so I played to a very full New Year's Eve amphitheater.
Very full, very annoyed crowd of people who were.
And in my head I was like, no, I shouldn't play Dizzy Rascal because that will only make people sad. But actually, all anyone wanted was to hear
just want to
fucking bonkers.
Most people are so far back that they wouldn't really be able to see him take it in anyway.
Dizzy looks different.
Yeah. At least you playing, it's going to be like a little bit clearer than, often like
my
stage
favorite thing from that
shitty.
is that he posted an Instagram post of not even like a doctor. It was just a man in a Hawaiian shirt looking into his throat. That's the photo that Dizzy Rascal used on Instagram.
Right.
The guy looks like John Lasseter.
Yeah,
and he's like putting like looking in, and he's like, sorry, fam.
guys, doctor's orders.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm playing at Meredith. Heaps of people. Massive crowd, and like I thought I was doing a great job.
They asked you. They often have like stage visuals, and they said to you like, "Oh, have you got like a thing for the backdrop?"
So
you gave them a USB.
On one hand, I wanted to make the crowd have a great time, but on the other hand, I wanted the 3 people who I'd spent the last 36 hours with in a van or tent to laugh during my set. So
you gave them a USB of something like 10 images of Plucker
It wasn't even
Duck.
a USB. I emailed them like.
Blown out JPEGs with like Shutterstock watermark.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I send them like 12 photos of Plucker Duck and then 1 photo of you?
You had one of me in the mix. you had one of me in the mix. See, again, this is like the difference between you and I. Biggest gig you've ever played. In my head, I probably end up doing a bad job of the gig because I'm
overthinking everything.
I'm like, I need the visuals behind me. I mean, that's the thing that people really remember. But like while you were on, I was like down the front with a bunch of our friends watching you, and I ran into a girl I hadn't seen for ages who was one of my first girlfriends, and I was like, "Hey, this is my friend," and she goes, "Who cares?" A beautiful end to the saga. So yeah, set's going great. As it often does, like that slot is like people are just ready for a good time.
Yeah.
They've often had like whatever the biggest band has been on it, like midnight or 11 or something.
It was Rat-a-tat.
I think you're right, yeah.
I played between Rat-a-tat and Floating Points, I think.
Yeah, maybe. It was a good year.
Yeah.
Father John Misty was on.
I had a massive first night and I had the best time then I had an enormous hangover the next day and had like a freak out when I realized, shit, I'm playing tonight. I better like work my set out. But that, like when I say freak out, it was like 10 minutes. And then I was like, spent 10 minutes dragging some songs into a playlist. Like, I'll be fine.
I just remembered we all got really high and we recorded a podcast in my car at like 2 a.m.
Which hopefully will never see the light
of day and never will.
There was a horrible Daryl Summers show on television at the time called You're Back in the Room.
Yeah, a hypnotism show.
And so we recorded a podcast called You're Back in the Car.
Yeah.
In your car.
Had nothing to do with hypnotism. We were just obsessed with it conceptually. So set's going great, and then you play Sorry by Justin Bieber is in the mix again. Everyone's loving it.
And like when I say I played Sorry by Justin Bieber, I played like a minute and a half of it because I was just churning through songs.
Yep.
And there were like, some big pop songs in the mix, but also rap songs, New Orleans bounce songs, dancehall, like all kinds of different genres. And I'm just tearing through them all very quickly.
There were a bunch of like my friends there who you hadn't met before, and like they kind of met you at our campsite. And so we made this big thing of like, we'll be down the front for Levins. And at the end of the set, they were all like, oh my God, great guy. That was a great set. Like, I can't wait for him to come back to Melbourne. It really did feel like it had just been this like, because a lot of times too, like they'll have the DJ that is on in that set it gets like pretty ravey or pretty like, niche. Like you really have to be fully on the gurn to appreciate it. So it was like fun to be there with something that was just like a fun party set that like everyone was having a good time.
Sure.
Because that's the thing about like that festival is like it's pretty music snobby, but then you'll see like they'll just play whatever pop song in between bands while people are picking up trash.
Totally.
And people will lose their minds to that, and it's like I don't think this audience is like as niche as the festival might think they are. But then so the next day, festival's over, driving you back to the airport, and you get like one comment on your Facebook page that's like a guy going, that sucked.
Like, a shit set, mate, or something like that. Yeah, I can't believe you played Bieber at Meredith.
Yeah, you're like, look at this loser. And and obviously what you have to write back is who cares?
Yes.
And so we're all laughing about that and going, what a dork. How funny is this? Drop you at the airport.
And you I remember you saying something like, imagine seeing that amazing set, the entire crowd loving it, and that's your thought.
That's your big takeaway.
And I was like, what a crazy one person to think that.
Yeah. Drop you off at the airport, you fly to Sydney. By the time you land, it's like all these people have discovered you, and are like, this is the guy. They're coming for you with the
most
flaming...
of Geelong is coming after me.
Which is... this is what I think is so interesting about you doing it as a 10-year thing, because that idea of you playing like a pop song and it putting off a whole crowd at a kind of like hipster music festival, I just don't think something like that exists anymore.
Well, yeah, now Triple J plays pop stars.
Exactly.
And Meredith probably books pop stars as well.
It's impossible to imagine you being on at Meredith like this year and having played like, Sabrina Carpenter or Chapel Roan and like anyone in the crowd. But yeah, I mean, there'd be people there to be like, I don't really care for this song. But the idea of it being this thing you ruined the festival by playing the song.
I think to their credit, it wasn't just because I played it. It was because I did notice a few people cringe when I played it.
Sure.
And so I pulled the music down and yelled, fuck anybody who doesn't love Beaver. That may have had something to do with
I rest my case, Your Honour.
And then I ended the set by like the song finishing, and then I said, "Thanks, Meredith. Who cares?" And then walked off the stage.
Yeah, it was annoying to me that you didn't get any comments like defending you that were like, "Hey man, I love that Justin Bieber song. And I reckon it's like the lines between like quote unquote indie and pop have never been more blurred. So I reckon it's actually really cool and progressive of you." I got to ask though. What was with that one random photo of that guy that kept coming up every 8 minutes? Who's he?
That's Justin Bieber.
All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here.
Who cares?
Great. And there you have it, Andrew Levins. Who cares? Hope you enjoyed this episode. Get onto our Instagram at How to Do Everything and let me know what you thought. We've also got a Patreon, patreon.com/How to Do Everything podcast. That is where, no, I've got those the wrong way around. Patreon is patreon.com/How to Do Everything, and the Instagram is at How to Do Everything podcast. God, like I said, we're a week into the comedy festival and it truly is amazing how quickly it just decimates every remaining brain cell that you have left. But those are the places that you can interact with me and let me know what you thought of the episode. There's always a discussion thread up on the Patreon. There's a free tier, which is where you can discuss the episodes after they've come out every week. So let me know. How do you go with managing stress? How do you go with being a parent? Are you the kind that is cracking the shits in a van in Vietnam, like what I witnessed? Have you seen Levins at any of his music festivals that he plays? Were you at that fateful Meredith, and what did you think of him playing Justin Bieber? Lots to dig into in this episode. Keen to hear anything that has been jogged for you from this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Please leave a nice review of the show on your podcast app of choice if you are enjoying it, or recommend it to a friend. Every little thing helps the podcast grow. But I do appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.